The North and South are seen as states which have been historically inimical to each other. But beyond this animosity that we have seen recently, what the roots of this opposition of southern states is rooted in the Dravidian ideology.
This is not an ideology or a movement that works to subvert structures, but to make the structures work for marginalized people.
In your book, you're particularly focusing on what was a socio-cultural movement about bringing an anti-caste social-cultural movement, a social justice movement, and how it transformed into a party politics.
Dravidian has its political birth with Ayodhidas, and in fact an administrative birth also, not just political, administrative. So he tells the marginalized castes of Tamil Nadu, or at the time Madras state or Madras presidency at the time, to identify or to report themselves as Dravidians in census. It was one round of a democratization, which is from the Brahmin elite, as you may have it. It moved to the non-Brahmin elite, or the Velladars, or the Shaivites, etc. And from the non-Brahmin elites, Periyar takes it down further, and then Annadurai takes it further down, Karunanidhi takes it further down, and then MGR takes it again. So there's at least 3 or 4 rounds of democratization further. But in the interim, Periyar, converts or takes back Justice Party from being a political party into a social organization, or social reform organization, which is Dravida Kalagam in 1944. But in just 5 years, again, the Dravidian leaders, including Annadurai and then many others, they understood that if we don't engage with power, if we don't engage with state, if we don't engage with elections and democracy, then there's no way that the marginalized can assert or get what they want. So the argument was it needs to be a political organization.
So how do you kind of differentiate between, how do these two mix linguistic assertion, Tamil as a universalizing or uniting thread, and also social upward mobility of marginalized castes?
Tamil is very important marker of the Dravidian identity that helps build that horizontal solidarity. So the Dravidian, mobilization is a mobilization of the middle and the lower, where caste violence or where social violence is the highest, because resources are scarce and therefore insecurity is higher. Therefore, the possibility of conflict is also a lot. In fact, Dr. Ambedkar also says, yes, the elite doesn't need to take to violence, because the backward caste will do it for him. This horizontal solidarity between marginalized castes, backward castes, depressed castes, etc. Tamil played as the cementing force.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Book Shook. I'm Ajoy Ashirwad, political editor of The Wire, and today we'll be discussing something which should give us a good sense of the opposition that southern Indian states have had towards the center, be it the imposition of Hindi language or the redistribution of taxes. In the last few years, we have seen states like Tamil Nadu, Kerala, and even Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka going after the center and opposing it on a number of initiatives that center has taken. So what we generally feel the historical trajectory has been like that. The North and South are seen as states which have been historically inimical to each other. But beyond this animosity that we have seen recently, what the roots of this opposition of southern states is rooted in the Dravidian ideology. Currently, the center is imposing Hindutva and its larger ideological framework onto different states, including the South, which the southern states have been opposing. And we'll be discussing the Dravidian ideology today. And the immediate context of this discussion is this newly launched book, The Dravidian Pathway, How the DMK Redefined Power and Identity in South India, written by a by the scholar Vignesh Rajahmani, whose PhD project at King's College London has now come as a new book, and it's making all the rounds and it is being discussed everywhere. And we'll be knowing from him. He's joining us today at the studio, and we'll be knowing from him what has he written and what Dravidian ideology actually means, and how it has shaped the political consciousness of southern states. Hi Vignesh, welcome to this discussion. Thanks for coming. And my first question, of course, will be what prompted you to write this book, and what was the immediate inspiration? Of course, you are from Chennai, but and so this Dravidian, and there are many books which have been written by historians and by political scientists on the Dravidian ideology. What new study are you bringing to the table?
Thanks, Joy. Thanks for that introduction. The first motivation actually comes from where all I have been. Yes, I was born in Chennai, and also I did my higher ed in Chennai. But also in the interim, I was in Andhra Pradesh. My schooling was in Andhra Pradesh, and then my master's research was on Uttar Pradesh and the rise of regional parties in UP in the 90s and how politics changed at the time. And then, to sort of have had this kind of experience working in Delhi again for 5 years after my master's, sort of gave me a lens to understand Tamil Nadu or to understand South India a little better, or in a way that it has not been synthesized or written so far. So, if I were to sort of simplify the Dravidian ideology or the identity for a moment, um, it's essentially on three pivots. And I draw from Nancy Fraser, one of the most compelling scholars of our time. She talks about recognition, redistribution, and representation. So, in other words, it is recognition of particularistic grievances of multiple communities in a plural society, and then redistribution of resources and opportunities, and representation in power to these marginalized communities. So, India is a plural society, but at the same time, India is a hierarchical society. In that context, how are you able to bring multiple marginal communities in a way that they have access to power, and they have access to opportunity, and they have access to resources? So, in other words, it is a long process of democratization and multiple iterations of democratization. And also, I'd want to add that this is not an ideology or a movement that works to subvert structures, but to make the structures work for marginalized people.
Yes.
So, it's a constant conversation, and therefore, it's always embracing differences as against trying to fight them.
Yes.
To embrace differences and go forward. It's to keep a few, it's to contain restiveness as against either making it exacerbating it or trying to quell it. It's to keep and then work on growth and development.
Yeah.
And a quick one-liner will be Tamil Nadu at the very least, is a high growth and a high development state, the only state in India. While you have high growth, low development states like Gujarat, Maharashtra, you have low growth, high development states like Kerala and Himachal, and you have low growth and low development states like Bihar and UP. But Tamil Nadu stands as a high growth and a high development state, second in rank with the GDP and economic size, and the fastest growing as well, despite the size, and second in rank with human development.
Yes.
So that's the kind of. So how did this work is the question. And again, did Tamil Nadu or did Madras state at the time have historical advantages? No. I mean, if we were to plot this on a graph, and anybody who has access to RBI data, which all of us do, you just go to the RBI website and you pick up historical data, you plot it on a graph, you will realize that in the 1960s, UP, Bihar, and Tamil Nadu were at the same point, the same dot. But 40, 50 years later, you see a clear divergence, which points towards some kind of policy making, some kind of political ideology, and some kind of an economic sense for the state to have grown. So, and even if one were not to go to the RBI site to parse through all of that data, there's actually a report in the Tony Blair Institute by this person called Karthik Akileshwaran, who synthesized a lot of previous research done on Tamil Nadu. So my analysis is on the lines of how people were politicized in a way that they are attuned to the notions of justice, equality, growth, and development all at the same time, as against one over the other.
Okay, so you're trying to say, are you arguing that the the leaps that Tamil Nadu have gone through in the last few years or last 40-50 years was largely because of the social parity, social justice movement that Dravidianism brought to Tamil Nadu?
Yes, it's caste over class.
It's simple terms. Yes.
So caste first and then class. So and it follows Dr. Ambedkar's logic. And make no mistake, Periyar, one of the most influential icons of Tamil Nadu, and 2025 was also 100 years of self-respect movement. Was very clear, in telling that if there is no social equality, that economic equality doesn't make sense.
Economic equality.
So, which is what Ambedkar said. And make no mistake, Periyar draws from Ambedkar, as he himself
Leans.
and also the notion of trying to do things parallelly, trying to pursue things parallelly. So you have to talk about self-respect on one day, and at the same time talk about the economic manifestation of what
self-respect means. So that is what is unique in the Dravidian ideology. In your book, you're particularly focusing on what was a socio-cultural movement about bringing an anti-caste social-cultural movement, a social justice movement, and how it transformed into a party politics, how DMK was the primary vehicle to carry forward or to sustain this movement in. So why do you focus on or why do you credit party politics as the primary vehicle of Dravidian ideology? And had it not been DMK, do you think that the socio-cultural movement would have faded out?
So that argument stems from the logic of power.
Yes.
So there was clear understanding amongst the Dravidian leaders. And when I say Dravidian leaders, I go even further back to Ayodhyadas.
Ayodhyadas, yes.
The word Dravidian has its political birth with Ayodhyadas, and in fact an administrative birth also, not just political, administrative. So he tells the marginalized castes of Tamil Nadu, or at the time Madras state or Madras presidency at the time, to identify or to report themselves as Dravidians in census, when the census officers come to them. So it goes back till then, so, and Justice Party, after the non-Brahmin manifesto in 1916, it was over the dominance of the elites in government positions.
Yes.
So Eugene Strick's work shows us that there were 4 or 5% of the population was actually having 90, or a community which is 4 or 5% of the population was having control over 90+% of government posts. So the argument then was, how do we democratize this first? So that's the Justice Party. And after Justice Party waned away, because it was one round of a democratization, which is from the Brahmin elite, as you may have it, it moved to the non-Brahmin elite, or the Vellalars, or the Shaivites, etc. And from the non-Brahmin elites, Periyar takes it down further, and then Annadurai takes it further down, Karunanidhi takes it further down, and then MGR takes it again. So there's at least 3 or 4 rounds of democratization further. But in the interim, Periyar, converts or takes back Justice Party from being a political party into a social organization, or social reform organization, which is Dravida Kalagam in 1924. But in just 5 years, again, the Dravidian leaders, including Annadurai, and then and then many others, they understood that if we don't engage with power, if we don't engage with state, if we don't engage with elections and democracy, then there's no way that the marginalized can assert or get what they want. So the argument was it needs to be a political organization. And it needs to be in electoral politics.
Yes, and that is why Periyar and Annadurai differed also. Yes, so and that is how DMK took over Dravidian ideology, if I may.
Yes, or we broke away from the DK.
DK.
And the DK continued to be, as Professor A.R. Venkatachalapati would say, it was a double barrel gun. In other words, so DK was taking very maximalist positions, and the DMK was trying to make it work politically. So the ideological core did not go away, but the DMK tried to find ways to make the ideology and its manifestations work in a very agile manner.
In an agile manner. So, what a very interesting chapter on your book is on the DMK's use of reading rooms as spaces where they could advance their ideology of social justice, of social equality, socio-economic equality. Many scholars have written about how cinema became such vehicle, or plays, poetry, literature, but I think you were the first scholar to draw upon the importance of reading rooms as one of the biggest vehicles through which Dravidian ideology could be propagated. So could you talk a little bit about that?
The question, or the reason why I had to move away from cinema, was because a cinema is one-way street. So the maker has given you something and you are engaging and reflecting on it on your own. And you don't have a chance of reflecting immediately or basically talking back immediately. And there were many people making movies at the time. But why was it that the movies made by Dravidian leaders at the time doing the rounds more than others? Was also one question. So which means there needs to be some associational activity. And also when I was doing my field work, you would realize that going to the houses of these old people who were active at the time, you would find the leaders of the Dravidian movement having gone to each of their houses, had food. There would be photographs. So Periyar came to our house. Oh, Anna came to our house. Oh, Kalaignar came to our house. They would do 15 talks, 20 talks a day. And then yes, they were talking, but how did people speak back was another question. Then here's where the Periyar's insistence or Periyar's relevance sort of comes with the reading room. So Periyar's first and a very sharp acerbic attack on the DMK was, you guys are fit for nothing. You will be fit for nothing because you are entering the business of compromise. Because now that you've started a political party, now you will water down everything. But this stays with Anna in his head. And he says, what if, and make no mistake, what Periyar said is right. Because in the larger South Asian system, the social structure moderates aspirations of the marginalized and also subjugates their selves. An elite doesn't have to tell the subaltern that you are subaltern. Subaltern will tell it to himself or herself. And the fight never happens at all with the elite. The fight is among subalterns. That's where the Dalit Bahujan, violence comes. Because you need to have someone below and you're constantly insecure. So, yes. And Periyar's counter to that was self-respect. Start respecting yourself so that you can move forward, So that you can discursively fight what discrimination is. So Anna knew that Periyar was right. So he said, what if my party office or my party space or branch office is also a reading space? So my party space, because it's anyway a small party, let people come in. We will have newspapers, you will have pamphlets, or we will just have people reading them out. At that time, not many people read. And this is not like the addas of West Bengal. And in fact, it is the subaltern version of addas that existed in other parts of Bengal, as against Calcutta. It's not the addas of Calcutta, which even Dipesh Chakravarti writes that, they were marked by dominance and exclusion. But if you were to follow the work of, let's say, someone like Athre Majumdar, who I recently sort of had a pleasure of talking to, she talks about such, people outside of Calcutta. So it's essentially one person reading out a newspaper or a pamphlet aloud, and everybody else is listening at some point, and they're talking back. So I read something out loud, we all discuss, you talk back. So that's the party office. So you train people in many ideologies, in many ideas. So your ideology was essentially an aggregation of many ideas.
Yes.
And everybody had their own vocabulary. You gave people their own, not just their voice. You actually did not give people their voice. You helped people build their voice. And so they were not parroting what you wanted them to parrot, but they were building their own versions of what social justice would be. And then you sort of, were the coordinator in chief. So that's what the DMK did. The reading rooms allowed them to do that.
Yes.
And the reading rooms, there were 300 to 400 newspapers at one point. And a few newspapers or magazines could have just been 2 editions, 3 editions. Some continue to run even now, for example, which is the DMK's party order. And those led to debate contests. Those then became, workshops for training party cadres. Those then became, intra-party competition machines. Just if you ran a great newspaper, if you had so many people, then there's a chance that you will be electorally viable. So that's the reading room, experience.
Yeah. So what was, since we're talking, also we're currently living in the times of where Hindi imposition is also a kind of big debate, which Tamil Nadu has opposed, Kerala has also opposed. So, but in your book, while you're talking about reading rooms, you're also talking about that Dravidian ideology, or even Dravidian idealism was never so much about anti-Hindi agitations or or linguistic assertion as is being made out to be by various scholars, but it was more about socio-economic advancement or social mobility of the marginalized castes. So that makes it a much more universal kind of an ideology, which is not just stuck on one. So how do you kind of differentiate between, how do these two mix, linguistic assertion, Tamil as a universalizing or uniting thread, and also social upward mobility of marginalized caste? How do they mix? How do they differ?
So Tamil is very important marker of the Dravidian identity. In fact, that's the cementing force that helps build that horizontal solidarity. So the Dravidian, mobilization is a mobilization of the middle and the lower, where caste violence or where social violence is the highest, because resources are scarce and therefore insecurity is higher. Therefore, the possibility of conflict is also a lot. In fact, Dr. Ambedkar also says, yes, the elite doesn't need to take to violence, because the backward caste will do it for him. Because because it's a graded hierarchy.
Yes.
So building that, and also if I were to quote Kanshi Ram, he said, "अगर गांव और बस्ती में दंगा मच गया, तो गांव के रावल, पटवारी और पंडित के यहाँ त्योहार है." So this is an interesting line. Therefore, Kanshi Ram also built that, the vision of Bahujan, the Bahujan vision, and therefore he didn't call it Dalit Bahujan as it's called today. And drawing from Ambedkar, Kanshi Ram, it was because I researched Uttar Pradesh also at one point. This horizontal solidarity between marginalized castes, backward castes, or depressed castes, etc. Tamil played as the cementing force.
They brought together all these kind of different non-Brahminical communities.
Yes. And Tamil also, in a way that it is everybody's Tamil. It is not a dialect, not one dialect, but the Tamil that they spoke was accessible to everybody, because the language Tamil also went through multiple processes of made being easy. Starting from Beski, and then who's called Veerava Munivar now. I mean, Tamils give interesting Tamil names to very white-looking people. So G.U. Pope is one person, and then Uvai Swaminarayan is another person. and also the Shaivite movement, Alekam, all of these people work, and Periyar also, and very recently Manavai Mustafa, who wrote the lexicon of technical terms. So all IT terms, he wrote the dictionary. So you would see that there's a Western person at one place. There are there's also a Brahmin in between. So another here who's one of a big a strong contributors, and then you also have Manavai Mustafa, who's a Muslim. So the makers of Tamil also came from a broad arena.
Yes.
So the notion was, as broad as I go, I may be slower, but I will go far. So from there, and also research tells you that if you learn in your mother tongue, you learn quicker. I've come across a few papers from the Institute of Education, University College London, which say that mother tongue education is the best. So now you need a link language, and at the same time you need a language. So can the link language then be a universal language as well? Is the question. That's why English.
The end goal wasn't Tamil. End goal was upward mobility of the marginalized caste.
The end goal of Tamil was to give the notion of self-respect to people.
Yes.
And that it's also, and the reason why Tamils go back to the notion of Tamil being the old language is because of because it's a reaction. When one says Sanskrit is the oldest language, that's when you will hear that, no, Tamil is older. Otherwise, they say Tamil is a great language and keep quiet. So the idea is Tamil works for me, so let me have it. And there is no push for, oh, why don't you speak? Because I spoke to a whole bunch of migrant laborers in Tamil Nadu, and I asked them, why don't you go to Maharashtra? Why don't you go to Delhi? And they say, sir, wahan pe izzat ka mahol hai hi nahi. And I say, and I ask him, what about learning the language here? Sir, yahan pe 4-5 words, 4-5 shabd hum agar bol diye. If we learn to speak 4-5 words and 4-5 sentences, the rest our own Tamil brothers will do.
Yeah.
They will help us. So the idea is, are you making an attempt? It's not that, oh, you speak. Everything else they will take care, sir. Was one of the questions. I mean, and he's basically a barber in a salon, that a nice guy. So and other people who are working in factory workers, that I got to sort of see. And now let's go to some data. In 1960s, Margaret Ross Barnett, so she published a book in the 70s, fantastic book. So she has done a survey of people at the time. So it's a survey-based result, where the reasons why DMK got support was, yes, Tamil, I mean anti-Hindi position, or Hindi imposition. The other thing was jobs and economic development. So food prices, Hindi and jobs. So these are the three things.
Yeah.
They went together in one way or the other. And in Tamil Nadu, the push for Tamil or resistance to Hindi is not an elite consensus. It's the consensus of the marginalized.
Yes.
So for example, if Bengali opposition to Hindi is, an outcome of elite consensus. To a certain extent, Maharashtrian consensus also is elite compared to Tamil Nadu. In that comparison, Tamil Nadu's opposition to Hindi is a subaltern consensus. So it's rooted, respect, dignity, and also mobility.
So that's a very interesting point, Vignesh. So yes, so that is what I was kind of thinking. This idea of social justice, of course, Dravidianism goes back to the non-Brahmin manifesto of 1916, and later it evolved from Periyar to Annadurai to then Karnanidhi, and then MGR's own version. So. But relatively in the northern India, these kind of anti-caste social justice movements, since you've spoken about Uttar Pradesh also, how do you differentiate, say, between Lohiite anti-caste politics and Dravidian anti-caste politics?
So here I would like to sort of take the help of a fellow scholar, Amit Ahuja. So he's written a book called Mobilizing the Marginalized, and where he makes a comparison between Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu on one end and UP and Bihar on the other. So in Maharashtra and Tamil Nadu, he says social movements were stronger. Therefore, Dalit parties are weaker. So there's a strong social movement, and therefore there are weaker Dalit parties. But because Dalit issues are not exclusive club goods, they are also universally problems to be pursued. They are not club issues to be pursued. But in UP and Bihar, you have stronger Dalit parties because the movements preceding them were relatively weaker, and therefore you have strong Dalit parties but weaker, social justice movements. But now there's a history to that as well. You know, the Bahujan vision or an opposition to Brahminical ethos in Tamil Nadu and Maharashtra have a longer history. And they took a lot of time before they got politicized or formal politics. But in UP and Bihar, the follow-up was pretty quick and quite quick. And the idiom in UP and Bihar is not so. The subaltern idiom or the subaltern vocabulary and the elite vocabulary are not very different. You draw from the same language, very similar language. You draw from very similar words and very similar life experiences. But on the other hand, to articulate Tamil grievances, you have a very different vocabulary. And same with Marathi. The change in language makes a big difference. Because then you talk to your people in very interesting way. So in UP and Bihar, the only possibility is by political labor. And I think the one person that did that much political labor was Kanshi Rao. But after that, were there so many people who went out to the people so much? Not necessarily. Therefore, the consensus could be, subverted pretty quickly. But all this said, the kinds of strides that UP and Bihar have done in their own merit is phenomenal. Because in a state where you have people being beaten to death, if you just use flowing river to wash the clothes, then to have to see a leader like Lalu and Nitish and Ramvilas Paswan emerge is a very big deal.
Yes.
And the same thing with UP as well. Because the kind of ingrainment of social hierarchy is a lot higher that I've seen, at least in my fieldwork in UP.
Yes.
I went and sat in a house in 2013. I still vividly remember it was an upper caste household. They figured out, they were trying to figure out who I was, etc. But then they realized I'm South Indian, etc. And then they had tried to ask me for my varna. And I said, it doesn't work. But we don't work like that. Then they asked me, where are you from? I said, I studied my master's in King's College London. They said, then okay, it makes sense. There's an old man who walked around, who I met the previous day, and he came, he saw us. I said, I waved my hands. He came and he straight sat on the floor. Nobody told him anything. So that in that kind of a region, to make people or to enable people to assert or articulate notions of justice is a very big thing.
Yes.
Which happened. And so UP and Bihar, as much as they are easily they're easy targets, Bihar has one of the biggest social sector spending in India. And in a recent report that we published, you'd see that it has a broader social sector spending compared to even Gujarat for that matter.
Yes.
So yes, the problem is that it's taken a welfare turn as against a rights turn, but still the groundswell is there. So the kind of and it's very difficult to do an anti-caste politics in UP and Bihar.
But the Tamil Nadu government, successive governments, irrespective of whichever party is in power, they also bank a lot on welfare. But there's a coexistence of people's consciousness about their own rights and government's compulsion to engage with welfareist politics. There's some sort of synthesis in it.
The turn to welfare in Tamil Nadu has always been rooted in empowerment or rights-based framework.
Which is not the case in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. Yes.
So a simple example that I always talk about is almost every state in India now has a cash handout for women. Almost every state. Could be 2,000, could be 1,000, could be 500, etc. But only in Tamil Nadu it is called Urimai Togai, which means rightful psalm. And every stage that the Chief Minister M.K. Stalin goes on, he says this is not your Udavi Togai, which means this is not your assistance sum, this is your Urimai Togai, which means it's your rightful sum. Urimai Togai means Hak Rashi. And he says Udavi is mother. It's not Madad Rashi, it's Hak Rashi. Every stage that he goes. And so therefore, you are always a contender of the ideology, or you're always contending for people's votes.
Yeah.
So are you the dominant contender for people's votes or no is the question. As against, are you the dominant benefactor of people or no?
Yes.
Therefore, a DMK will also be on its toes because, it continues to think that, it may be defeated.
Yeah.
Therefore, even in an election that others may think would be easy, the DMK workers will be working very hard.
Yes. No, but Vignesh, I had a thing, for example, despite having a long history of, say, social justice and anti-caste politics, the moment DMK came to power in 1967, Tamil Nadu saw one of its worst caste massacres in 1968, in Kidwani massacre, where people who were at the forefront of Dravidian politics in one region were the primary perpetrators of violence against Dalits. So there are complications within the system. Your central argument of your book is from the time of Periyar to Annadurai. Annadurai could pivot towards party politics, which was entailed by politics, by being and he could sustain the Dravidian ideology by being flexible. And you also use the term opportunism, or adapting to the current political circumstances, or to take the Dravidian ideology further. So, but there have been compromises in between. There have been what was an anti-Brahmin movement earlier. The ethos remained, the rhetoric remained against Brahminism, but there was emergence of neo-feudal castes also in the process. So, how do you kind of capture that in your book?
Thanks, Ajay. In fact, I want to add one line to the previous answer, which is Dr. Manmohan Singh also, articulated all of welfare schemes in the rice-based framework. And in the last, opportunity that I got to work with him on was the Nyaya scheme, where he said, no, it needs to be an act. And the scheme will be an outcome of the act. Because the question was there within the party saying, well, what about credit claiming? At that time, the politics was about credit claiming in the country. Said, no, credit claiming will be done by the party. But as a government, we will bring it as an act and then it will be a scheme.
Yes.
So Dr. Saib also was pretty much on those lines. So the Dravidian movement, even under Periyar and Anna, but more explicitly under Anna and more accessibly under Anna, was anti-Brahminical. Although Periyar was also...
And not anti-Brahmin. Yes.
But Anna made it a lot more clear compared to Periyar. Periyar was in the business of persuasion. He was talking to people. He needed to give everyday idioms, and he had a very interesting way of talking. When I say interesting way, he would just, he did not believe in prodding, as Mr. Chhatrapati recently said. He did not believe in gentle prodding. He would always want to shock you. So therefore, Periyar came off as very anti-Brahmin, although he was anti-Brahminical. But Anna Anna was a lot more composed, a lot more mellow. He took time to explain, etc. And then he, in one of the articles in Dravidian Nadu, he writes, Aryam Irukumidam, meaning, where does Aryanism exist? Aryanism is an metonym for Brahminism. He says, if a Brahmin ill-treats, an intermediate caste, it's Aryanism. But intermediate caste does it to a backward caste, there's a problem in backward caste, does it to a lower backward caste. And if a lower backward caste does it to a Dalit, if a Dalit does it to a lower Dalit. So graded inequality is presented in the caste structure of Tamil Nadu in his article. And that was pretty popular. So now coming to Keelvanmani. This is for context. Gonna address Keelvanmani now. The Dravidian movements or DMK's coming to power did not solve issues. It opened up the avenue to solve issues. And as S. Narayan writes, until 70s and the 80s, where bureaucrats are also from subaltern castes, the logic of social justice or the implementation of social justice could not be seen through. And again, I hark back to Sri Ram, where it says, Jis samudaya ka PM नहीं बन सकता है, उस समुदाय का CM कुछ नहीं कर सकता है.
Hmm.
So because Indian system is rooted in revenue administration service, all of that revenue administration and justice administration service is rooted under bureaucracy. You need a broad consensus of what's right and what's wrong.
Hmm.
And Keelwan money is not a DMK project.
Hmm.
It's it is an outcome of restive anger and dominant violent tendencies of a of a middle / upper caste, or intermediate caste in Tamil Nadu. But cut 60 years from there, today, 4-5 weeks or maybe a little more than that, a youngster called Kavin was killed, honor killing, over a romantic relationship or a love relationship, with another caste.
Yeah.
He was killed. So between that, and if you want a comparison, an apple-to-apple comparison, then it's 2012 Dharmaburi riots.
Dharmapuri riots, yeah, and there are many in the 1 year belt.
In the middle.
You keep hearing a small incidents about caste
Exactly.
discrimination. Yeah.
So between that, so if you were to just take two big riots across 60 years, 1968 that you said in 2012, because these are big in scale. The others are smaller, which I will come in a minute. 1968 was marked by dominance, arrogance, impunity, and wealth, and big wealth disparity. And possibly the perpetrators were electorally viable still for the next 1 or 2 elections, which I do not want to discount. 2012, Dharmapuri, people were not burnt, but degree certificates were burnt. So markers of mobility were affected. The TV, fridge, AC, washing machine were stolen from the houses of Dalits. Degree certificates were burnt. So it was marked by looting and picketing, where it was a large-scale riot. The only reason why I made that distinction, between large-scale riot and the smaller acts of killing that you say. When I say smaller scale, still he is acts, right? So this comes from a sense of insecurity, closing or convergence of wealth disparities, and a contest for resource and opportunities. And this, if you were to look at a larger data set, despite its shortcomings, which is the IHDS data set between 2004, 5 and 11, 12, you will see that, and Dr. Kalayarasan and Professor Vijay Bhaskar have written it in their book, the Dravidian model, the relative rate of growth of Dalits is faster than the relative rate of growth of OBCs, not in absolute numbers, the rate of growth. But that's felt by the lower class of backward castes. And therefore the violence comes out. Right? And now coming to
What happens to the horizontal solidarity? Yeah.
the horizontal solidarity.
Project that Dravidianism entailed. Yeah.
Yes. The horizontal solidarity is that such acts become electorally unviable. So the party that has done it, and make no mistake, the party that we talk about 1 years in the PMK, when they started off in 90s, when they were electorally viable, they introduced the Troika in North Tamil Nadu, a photograph which you see very popularly in Tamil Nadu, which is introduced by Mr. Ramdas, the senior Ramdas, Ambedkar, Periyar and Marx. That photograph, it would be funny for us to recall now, years later, that this photo was actually given by these guys. And they had a rule in their party that the general secretary will always be a Dalit. And by definition, and the maximum number of Ambedkar statues were unveiled by that party. And the passing of Dalit, last rites of Dalits, when they had to pass through the village, he was the one who was in charge of making sure that they passed through well. He would walk alone. From them, you slip to where you are today, electorally unviable. Electorally unviable, they've been marginalized. They've hardly been reduced to 2 or 3 seats. Otherwise, they were at least 30, 40 seats. They were electorally, considered in 90 seats at least. And Andrew White has written about it. So the electoral viability goes away. And you are also able to bring out an anti-honor killing law. Or now there is a commission which will recommend how the law should be, a law commission which will recommend how, and then you also had Justice Chandru heading, how to stop caste violence in schools. You can bring out these commission reports, you can bring out laws over it and still be electorally viable. Instead of thinking that, if I go after them, will I lose my election? Because it's the same dominant caste, quote unquote, dominant caste people, a section of them who are also your supporters. So the DMK gets votes from 1 years who are opposed to Ramadas.
Mm.
So therefore, the idea or the reason why I said anti-Brahminism is because now people are not your issue. Ideas are your issues. Therefore, a Brahminical person is your problem, even if he comes from a Vanya caste. Or even if he, let's say for a moment, comes from Devendra Kula Vellalars. John Pandian is not in the DMK or in the DMK alliance because he says, stop calling us Dalits. And he's also a guy who says, we will also kill. And there's a big one-pager, I think, on the Hindu at some point about beheadings in South Tamil Nadu, where the violence is from both sides. Because the convergence between the Thevars and the Devendra Kula Vellalars is closer compared to the Vanyas and the Parayars. So it's an interesting question.
Yeah, so it's probably
An outcome of the Dravidian movement.
Yes.
It led to mobility. That mobility is causing insecurity.
Yes.
So if there is no mobility, if there were if as you might say in Hindi in this movie Santulan, if the Santulan was not rattled, then a spectacle violence would not happen today. Because now you can't engineer a riot. Therefore, you end up in doing spectacles and you stop being politically relevant, you go to jail.
Yes.
So Vignesh, I'll end with one final question, that Tamil Nadu elections are also coming, and since you've been involved in a lot of electoral consultancies also earlier, how do you look at Tamil Nadu elections from the point of view of how Dravidian ideology has panned out between two major forces, DMK and AIADMK now, and AIADMK being the part of BJP-led NDA? So, how do you look at this ideology being played out in the current electoral space?
I will. Oh, great! You asked me the ideology part, not the elections part.
Yeah,
Easier.
yeah.
So
No, because your book is on ideology, I want to get sense of how ideology has shaped up in the electoral space, in the electoral space, because from DMK there were many different factions which came out over the last 40 years, and now people don't see the Dravidian part, the many Dravidian groups which are inimical towards each other, and there's so it has a and there is a problem of what we know as dynasty politics also. So all of these issues are currently being played out. So how do you kind of see Tamil Nadu elections this time?
So 3 parts to this answer.
Yeah.
So first is the ideological difference between the DMK and the ADMK. They're ideologically unidirectional. But there is a difference. They're not the same. They're unidirectional, but they're not the same. The difference is this, if I was to make it simple. Let's take 3 icons as stalwarts. So there's Periyar on one end, there's Anna in between, and there's Gandhi on the other end. So the DMK operates between Periyar and Anna. And the ADMK operates between Anna and Gandhi. In other words, therefore, you would see their turn to welfare, etc. The ADMK also tried a creamy layer for OBCs, after which they lost an election in the 80s under MG. So that will explain a few of the policies of the ADMK and why they're inclined towards well. And also the ADMK, when MGR split from the DMK, he expanded the footprint of Dravidian ideology, and because the DMK's historical vote base is north and central Tamil Nadu, and Congress was dominant in the south and the west. So the ADMK became dominant in south and west over years. So they went after the Congress, in other words. So therefore, the Gandhi reference also helps. You would see MGR songs after in the later stages, will all have a verse or a stanza about Gandhi. So you have fewer numerically dominant groups supporting the ADMK, like the Congress. They built a sandwich alliance, top and the bottom. The DMK builds an alliance between the bottom and the middle. So more number of communities. So small majority of more numerically. So a more number of numerically non-dominant groups. And therefore, the DMK is more inclined towards rights-based empowerment politics, etc. And Narendra Subramanian, Professor Narendra calls it empowerment populism. Arun Swami calls them empowerment populism. But the ADMK, what Dr. Swami and Professor Subramanian call them paternalistic populism. So this is the ideological difference. Therefore, they don't see eye to eye.
EDMK's is paternalistic populism. Yeah.
Okay. And therefore, they don't see eye to eye. Therefore, though they are ideologically unidirectional, their anger is in terms of if DMK builds 10 schools, ADMK will come back and say, I'll build 20 schools.
So this competitive populism. Yes.
And policy continued. As against in Andhra, where I saw a big building was constructed by one government. The next government came and demolished the building. They said the building was okay, you just need to change the board. Or even repaint it. So, but here, the buildings should be kept alive. The prints will be kept alive. In fact, they will come cut each other's ribbons for but they will be used. They'll be put to good use. So, for example, when Kalaignar built one of the best secretariats for Tamil Nadu government, as it was at that time, Jayalalitha's anger meant that she will convert it into a government hospital, not demolish it. So that's again welfare.
The general hospital, yeah.
There is a fantastic hospital. I've been there a bunch of times. I gave projects done. So that's the ideology. Therefore, there is no defections between both parties in 2016. Even now, defections are very low. The ability to absorb ADMK people in the DMK is not a lot. So, and now let's come to the elections part. Between 1977 and 2021, if you were to plot numbers on the graph, what you mean by Dravidian ideology or Dravidian footprint in form of numbers is DMK-led and ADMK-led alliances make for 85% vote share. The winning alliance at times gets 45 and the losing alliance gets 40. It could be up and down broadly. So that's the 5% difference. At times it could be 1%, which is in 2016, 2%. But which means in first past post system, any small party is, unless you join the alliance, you're in the residual vote share. So it's a 15%.
Yes.
And if you're in 15%, you can do whatever you want, but your votes won't become seats. Right? But for the first time in 2024, that became 70. The DMK on its part lived up to the promise, which is 47% vote share. But the ADMK alliance, the DMK alliance was 47% vote share. The ADMK alliance was only 23. The BJP was able to act as a pivot, took two regional parties. So it had 10% vote share and then three other regional parties and then built it to 20. So 23 and 20, 43 and then 47, 90%. And then a Tamil nationalist or a Tamil nativist person called a party called Nam Tamlar Katsi or Seema got 10%. In 26, they are now again trying to close ranks as we see. So the ADMK and NDA and the BJP are fighting together. And the smaller non-ADMK parties like AMMK, the breakouts are all coming together. They're trying to close ranks. Again, trying to put this 47 and 23 and 20 as 47 and 23.
23.
That's 47 and 43. 49 and 43. So that's the effort that's being made from the other end. But again, the ADMK has, it again takes me back to a few of the implications of ADMK's policies. For example, 9th schedule is credited to the ADMK, having 69% reservation, listed category credited to them. And so a party, which is a very important point in Tamil Nadu politics. So, and in 2014, Madam Jayalalitha campaigning for 2 days was able to sort of win 38 of 39 seats.
Yes.
In 2014. And she, from there to now, where there's no ideological ambivalence, there is ideological, silences. And those silences are pretty loud. So the ADMK's problem today is they have a disconnect between the leadership and the cadre. Cadres are not able to move away from MGR and Jayalalitha's notions. Okay. But the leadership, is also constrained. But at the same time, they're not able to convince the cadres. The leadership is not charismatic enough to overpower the older repertoire. So the cadres are stuck in one place. and the leadership is also stuck in another place.
Mhm.
So will they be able to resolve this? Because only if they resolve this will this 23 and 20 be will at least 23 and 20 on paper will result in 43 or 42, 41.
Alteration.
Otherwise, this 23 and 20 might as well make you 30,
Mhm.
because the whole may be less than the sum of parts
Mhm.
because of that disconnect on the ground.
Mhm.
This is where Tamil Nadu
It currently stands.
currently
Okay,
stands.
we'll end at this. Vignesh, very nice speaking with you and getting a lowdown on what's happening in Tamil Nadu right now and uh, why the Tamil Nadu politics is so high pitched and ideologically driven. We got a good sense. I would recommend everyone to get hold of his new book so that they understand that the whole point of southern the state opposition of southern states towards center and its policy is not merely opportunities. It's rooted in something deeper, ideas of self-respect. And on this note, I'll leave you guys. Thank you so much for joining us.